Hi, my name is Alyssa Chandler, and this is my presentation of Prompt 1 for my master's portfolio for the seminar class in the graduate program at the University of West Georgia. For the purposes of this portfolio, I chose standards in the subject areas of math and ELA. I currently teach fifth grade math in a departmentalized teaching model where I do not teach another subject area. However, I've chosen to implement cross-curricular understandings of mathematics terminology through the subject area of ELA as a secondary standard. This mathematics standard shown on the screen is something that I taught a few months ago in a previous unit. However, students still utilize skills learned in this unit daily. This standard relates to students' abilities to write an expression, understand it, solve it, convert it between symbol and numerical formats. And in order to do that, students need an understanding of content-specific math vocabulary related to the unit. So that's kind of where the ELA standard begins to tie in. Specifically, they have to know keywords that indicate operations, word form of numerals, and unit-specific vocabulary, like a word that they learn in fifth grade that is from, and it is a switch word, and it changes the order that an expression is written in. So diving deeper into the math standard, again, student learning outcomes are that they are able to solve expressions, convert between simple and numerical, create an expression based on a word problem, and this lesson specifically focuses on students' ability to create and convert expressions using the content-specific vocabulary. As an instructor, I have to be able to engage students' background knowledge of math terminology they might have learned in previous years. So for many, they're familiar with addition and subtraction keywords. They've been solving addition and subtraction problems since first grade. And similarly, multiplication and division problems are familiar with those. They've been solving them since third grade. So it's important to tie in that background knowledge and see what do they already know before I start that unit. The ELA standard, my learning outcomes are that students will be able to determine fifth grade level math specific keywords that indicate the operations. Like I said, that part's usually familiar to them, but it's also the terminology of unit specific words like the word from. So they have to be able to utilize the terminology to convert expressions between simple and numerical formats and create their own simple expressions. So the word from is a switch word and it will change the order that an expression is written in. And usually they're not familiar with that from a previous grade level. They could be familiar with it from fourth grade, but it's not likely. As the instructor, I have to have knowledge of specific content vocabulary like that they may be able to recognize or may not be able to recognize. So they may have been exposed to some important vocabulary words previously. But again, from is one of the ones that they're not usually familiar with. And there's others that I have to incorporate into the lesson to make sure that they have a concrete understanding of how to solve and create these expressions. As for my pedagogical content knowledge, so content knowledge and pedagogical knowledge intersect in the areas of pedagogical content knowledge. So it's kind of knowing the content you teach and then knowing how to teach it and combining the two. So I try to think of instructional strategies that allow me to teach content the most effectively. Some of the strategies I use that I feel allow me to be the most effective are notebooking, analysis of student work, mastery learning, and I'm going to talk about those approaches later. So teachers who have the opportunity to develop deeper pedagogical content knowledge can better enhance student learning, and the expertise of the teacher is related to student achievement levels according to research. So my pedagogical content knowledge largely comes from approaches I've seen in other classrooms, strategies I've read about through my degree programs, and I've adapted to fit the needs of my classroom. I'm constantly trying to brainstorm and reflect on my practice to figure out how can I improve my practice as a teacher through the use of more effective and more beneficial instructional approaches. One thing that's important to consider is the background of your classroom so that you can plan to differentiate your lesson. The first step to planning differentiation is to determine what your students already know and what they already understand. Then you can plan to meet them where they are and support them from there. So, in planning to differentiate your classroom, you should evaluate the demographic that you're teaching. So in my school, the fifth grade team is split into two sides. There's one side that teaches special education students and one side that does not. I'm on the side that has no special education students. I also have no students that have not tested out of ELL. So the demographic in my classes that would largely benefit from differentiation that I have to consider are gifted students and those in MTSS, specifically Tier 3. Since my classes are ability group, my class periods are into 3 class periods, I can alter my general lesson plan to accelerate the learning of the gifted students and support the learning of my SST students through scaffolding. So down here, I've listed just general practices or strategies and approaches I consider when I'm planning differentiated lessons for my classes. So for my gifted kids, a lot of times I'll accelerate the pace of the content or give them advanced content levels. So for example, this week we've been doing dividing fractions, and I've done the division of sixth grade level fractions for my higher level class because all of them test at a sixth grade level or above. Also, IXL Arena is individualized, and it progresses them based on a placement test that they take. And they take it anytime that you assign it to them. So it's constantly changing and meeting them where they are. I also give them more choice in supplemental activities they might want to complete when we finish the main task in class. So I might give them options of things they might do or give them challenge activities. I also give them more independent work and less teacher led tasks because they tend to get bored with me doing a lot of directed teaching up at the front of the room. Um, for my MTSS kids, I have one class period that is largely all kids that are in Tier 3 of SST. So they get a lot of small group and individual practice with me. Um, they get more direct instruction also just from me up at the front of the room. They need more support. So typically, I have 2 to 3 interventions that build on a grade level skill from a previous grade level for those kids that are in Tier 3 of MTSS. I also utilize IXL standards from previous grade levels to help them fill in those missing skill sets. And they also use the IXL Arena because, again, it meets them where they are testing currently. We also have to do daily fluency in my lower class because they just don't have a solid grasp on their multiplication and division facts yet. And if they don't have a solid grasp on those, it makes a lot of the work we do in fifth grade math much more laborious than it has to be. Another thing that you have to plan for, similar to differentiation, is managing behaviors. So, in order to manage behaviors, the main thing is to plan ahead all routines, procedures, and rules that I implement in my room. I'm intentional in every practice I bring into the classroom. I thoughtfully consider their seating charts, what materials they should have to be prepared, how they should enter or exit the room, where they can find their work, and every other aspect of having them in my classroom. The environment in the classroom should be organized and predictable to them so that it can be the most effective. Students should know what to expect on a daily basis and generally follow the same routine. This allows you to have more time to focus on instruction and less time to focus on managing behaviors. Um, as for monitoring my students' learning, I really just analyze any data I can get my hands on. So, just like math is essentially just making patterns and being able to identify patterns, student performance is based on data as well. It is important to take time to analyze student data and look for patterns within it routinely. These can provide you with data driven guidance on the remediation of skills you may need to revisit that you've already taught and how you should progress learn or teaching skills in the future. Student learning in my classroom is monitored weekly through quizzes based on standards per unit with common assessments, per 9 weeks with STAR math, and yearly with the Georgia milestones to ensure that students are meeting grade level performance expectations. So one of the instructional approaches I use are the math notebooking. So students keep a log of each concept I taught them in a math notebook, and it's a reference they can use in class or at home. It allows them to document their learning through the whole school year as we progress through all our units. Our notebooks are largely note-taking based, but there are some reflective aspects to them. So, for example, students started the year by writing their current relationship with math, known as their math story, whether it's good or bad, as far back as they can remember. And they were encouraged to share this story with me or with their classmates. And I shared my own story with them. At the end of the year, we reflect on how our relationship has changed since the start of the school year. Students also organize their notebooks into sections for each unit we complete with a table of contents page. They track each skill or concept they are taught on that table of contents, and we include example problems for each skill as well as notes. So that gives them a reference if they need to remember how to do a certain skill. They have an example problem to help them. Students are required to complete a spiral review the first 10 minutes of class each day, and that's known as our quick six. And each night, as they complete their homework, they answer about 8 spiraling questions as well. And their math journal is just a resource they can use as a reference if they need to recall a specific skill or concept they were taught earlier in the year. So this is a picture of some of the notes we took that relate back to that standard in math where we are solving, creating, and converting expressions. So this is a picture of our table of contents page for that unit and the first couple of things glued in that relate to that. So you can see those math vocabulary words, some examples of problem solved, and the steps to PEMDAS.
So show me the covers of your math
notebooks.
notebooks.
I have 2 of my students just answering some
And then
questions
tell
about
me what
their
the
math
stickers
notebook if
mean.
you wanted to pause and watch the video. It shows
The
how
growth on your star.
students
So
they
you
view
both
their
have big
notebooks,
blue stickers. Do you
usefulness
know
to
what they
them,
mean?
and highlight some of the features that benefited them back
Over
when we
1
did
year or
Unit
3
2 on
years.
those
And
expressions.
then where can you check your growth?
Another instructional approach I use is analysis of student work with targeted feedback. So in my opinion, scratch work is the basis of all performance in the content area of math, and we can use student scratch work performance to promote growth and academic achievement. My district has encouraged us to provide students with work samples in all subject areas that showcase what's expected of them. So when I was trying to figure out how to implement this for math, I kind of drew a blank. It was difficult for me to find work samples that would be universal and relate to all units and not be specific to certain skills. Then I figured out there's one common factor in all of the math that my students are doing, and that's scratch paper where they show their work. So no matter what they're doing, they need scratch paper, whether it's STAR math or common assessments or quizzes, homework, in-class assignments, they always have a piece of scratch paper. So I kind of took that and I made this rubric here. I realized that if I could provide them with feedback on the quality of their work and the amount of effort that they should be putting forth in their scratch work, then I could possibly impact their performance in math. So I provide consistent feedback on work daily in class. But the focus of my work is on the scratch paper they use on common assessments. So I write students' grade for the assessment, assess them using this rubric I created, provide detailed feedback to them to help them improve or highlight things they did well. And we typically review these in a whole group setting and showcase exemplars and non-exemplars. And on this rubric, it goes over the legibility of their work, the formatting. Are they putting their name on the paper with a title and a date? Are they using strategies that we went over in class? Are they using a variety of strategies? Are they accurately using strategies? And their uses of resources also in the classroom. So are they writing out their multiples on the paper if they don't know multiplication facts, stuff like that. And then here's a picture of where I keep that in my room. I have it on something known as the Bump It Up wall. I have 4 levels here that relate to the performance bands, the common assessment places them into based on their score. And these also relate to our STAR Math common assessment performance bands.
So this is
Here's a video where I go over my wall and give a tour of it if you'd like to pause and watch it here.
This is specifically work sample.
And
So
the
this
work
is
that I
my bone
currently
and
have
duck
on this wall is
where
from
I
when we did our
had
unit on
analysis of
expression.
student
So
work,
on their scratch
and
paper,
this is
it has
specifically work samples
some
on scratch paper or
exemplars
Unit
and
2, and
non-exemplars
it's our
of where
common
people
assessment that we took back in
either
November for that
utilize
unit.
the concepts we taught
So on the
PEMDAS
bump it up wall, you
and
can see there's levels
converting
1,
between
2,
simple and
3,
numerical
and 4,
expressions,
and
creating
those
expressions
align
for
to
word
performance
problems, or they
bands for
didn't.
our common assessment,
And I
and they
have given
also
them
align to performance
explicit
bands
feedback on
for our
each
STAR
of their
math
work
test
samples,
and
and
for the
we've gone
common
over it in
assessment. So I
class to
try to keep
see
them the
what
same.
should have been done and
So
what
this is
was
for
not
students
done
to
on some
compare the
papers.
work that they're submitting.
My next instructional approach is student goal setting. So they set their goals in various ways. Students have personal goals on the inside cover of their math notebook. So I printed this on a shipping label as a sticker, and it serves as a constant source of student data for anyone to review. Students being aware of what their personal goals are and the amount of growth they're expected to show after each test are both crucial to student performance. Math notebooks are where people or students can take pride in their hard work and meeting their goals. They can meet their goal of growing 3 months and earn a sticker that is smaller, or meet their goal for growing a year and earn a larger sticker. I also give students rewards for meeting their goals. So I've given them cupcakes, Sprites, ice cream for meeting their goal. I also give students who meet their goals public shout outs with a brag wall. I'd like for students to have their growth showcased and for them to be able to give insight as to why they feel like they were successful in their performance. And students on the wall feel a sense of pride in hearing other classes and other grade levels walk by and read their hint to success. So when we took STAR in October, it was right after I had begun Unit 2, where we started expression. So we hadn't gotten very far into it. That means that this most recent STAR I have in December is really assessing how well they understand expression. So thankfully, I have some recent data on that that incorporates the entire unit into it. And this is the sticker on the right that they have in their notebook where they can track their progress. Here's a picture of that brag wall where students are identified for how much growth they made, and a few are showcased as to why they feel like they made that growth, what helped them, what are their keys to success. Here's a picture of just the cover of the math journal as an example with the stickers for growth and some of the stickers that I give them after they've been rewarded with something from me. So this is from their December reward where they got a Sprite for being bright if they grew 3 months or more. Another instructional approach is mastery learning. So I use mastery learning to guide my instruction daily. It gives me insight into student learning outcomes. I have them aim for mastery at various levels. I provide them with one assessment per standard I teach and usually give them a quiz anywhere from 6 to 10 questions. And it just allows me to evaluate their progress and how I should move forward. I also use STAR math data to drive my instruction. So the STAR math mastery report is shown here on the right. And it just shows me for each standard, like where are they? Are they still developing? Are they beginning? Or are they secure in it? Are they in the green? And I feel like I can go over these reports with my students and show them how to interpret their test scores and their progress. And I've really noticed that students' literacy and understanding their academic data can largely impact their performance. Same thing for Edulastic. It's down here at the bottom. I have a picture of just some of the quizzes I've created. I will also go over their data with them. Per class period, I tell them what the class average was, and we go over what the most missed questions were. And it's really beneficial for them to understand where their scores are coming from. Here's a picture of a mastery wall I have where I have student success criteria. How do we know as a class period that our class is successful and secure in a certain skill? And on the data wall, I have our performance on our common assessments and our STAR math just as a whole group. And then I also have a graph here showing all of the student performance data. And it is anonymous, but students can kind of identify where am I on that graph? Am I in the green? Am I in the blue, the yellow, or the red? And where should I be?
And then moving over
So
here,
here's two
this is
videos
part
giving
of
me a
the goals
tour.
for the
If
class
you'd like to
period,
go in
and this is
more
our
in
success
depth on what's on my
so
board
each of the
report.
standards that I've taught.
As for my reflection, discussion, and analysis of my approaches, there are some areas of improvement I'd like to make some changes. I'd like to incorporate some new practices and alter some of the practices I'm currently using. that I showcased in this presentation. I've created the current forms of these approaches with trial and error. So I reflect on what is benefiting me and what needs to be adapted continuously. Right now, my strengths are in student data analysis, providing feedback and recognition for success. However, in the next school year, I'd like to have the layout of their math journals secure and well mapped out prior to the start of the year. This year was me kind of piloting those. I've been creating an exemplar version of it alongside my students and leaving notes for what could be done differently or what could be done better. These have allowed me to create tremendous growth in my classes of all ability levels. I also feel like students' literacy and understanding their data has had an impact also because they can understand this is the standard that they were taught and how well does the class as a whole understand that standard? What can we do to better it? Why do we keep going over this standard? Why does Ms. Chandler keep putting it in spiral review? It kind of gives them reasoning as to why we spiral review because clearly we're not fully grasping skills that we were previously taught. These strategies have again allowed me to create tremendous growth and benefit students of all needs. But some of the strategies that I'm weaker in and interested in finding ways to use next year are project based learning and number talks. This year, I have moved to a new grade level and a new subject area. And so it's just been a lot trying to find time to do them. But I would like to do them next year because I do think it would be beneficial to their learning conceptually. So justifying my evidence of support. The evidence that I submitted, those approaches address the needs of above and below level learners because the majority of the approaches I use are individualized and they relate to data. So I've seen comparable growth in my lowest performing class and my highest performing class, even though they're performing on very different achievement levels, grade equivalencies. There's definitely a divide. They've made nearly the same amount of progress with over a year's worth of growth only halfway through the school year. My high class has grown a year and 6 months, and my low and middle classes have grown a year and 3 months. So there's not a large gap in their ability to grow. It's just the performance levels that they're currently at. So just meeting them where they are really does, it is an effective strategy. I do provide my SST kids in the low group with interventions, but otherwise, I really teach that low group with the same level of expectations and rigorous content that the high group receives because they are just as capable and their performance data proves they're more than a class that may need extra support from me. I feel like it can be really beneficial just to push them even further and make them aware that you have very high expectations and they are capable of everything. They're not just a class that needs more support from their teacher. These are my citations for everything that I included in my approaches. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope you enjoyed learning about some of the approaches I used in my classroom while we were doing Unit 2, specifically when we were practicing converting between simple and numerical expressions. I feel like these approaches had a great impact on my students' learning. They are pretty secure in expressions, and I feel like part of that is probably looking at their data and understanding where do we need to improve and doing some error analysis on things that they are still stuck on. So I hope you enjoyed watching. Thank you so much.